my name is Natalie. Today I wanted to do a Friday Reads video combined with a very small library haul. So I wanted to do something chill to update you on what I'm currently reading, and yeah, you probably know what Friday Reads is by now. So yeah, I'm going to show you the 4 books that I'm currently making my way through. First up we have the gigantic one in the bunch, and it is Les Miserables by Victor Hugo. This is the French classic focusing on Jean Valjean, a prisoner who has stolen a piece of bread, and he spends a long time in prison. He gets out and makes something of himself, and then he starts running from the police eventually. It is an epic book. It follows not just Jean Valjean but Cosette and a lot of other things. There's a lot of side notes and talk about the French politics of the time, and there's a lot of social commentary, a lot of criticism of the time, and especially discussing, Victor Hugo does a lot of discussing about things like the educational system, the rights for women, and basically the lack of them. So it's really interesting, and actually enjoying the characters a lot. I really enjoy the character study of Jean Valjean, of Cosette, and her mother Fatine. Fatine, I think? Is her name. I've really enjoyed all the time that we spend with one particular character and following them quite closely. The only thing that is not my favorite is when he goes on a tangent and talks about specific things to do with politics, and goes on quite, he becomes quite long-winded in one section in the beginning of the second part of the book, where he talks about Napoleon and the war in detail. I just find those parts really dull, but as far as the characters go and the actual story, I'm really enjoying it. I find that I lose interest quite easily when he goes off the track. I think I'm about a third of the way through, almost, more than 300 pages in anyway, and I've really enjoyed the experience so far, but it's going to take me some time to get through this, since it is such a long book. A book that I've been currently reading for a while and also hoping to finish in the next week or so is The Matter of the Heart by Thomas Harris, which is a nonfiction book about heart surgery. The thing that is slowing me down is that there's a lot of information in this, and I'm finding it quite difficult to really follow all of the different parts of the heart, and the sort of the system of the heart and how it works, and the directions that it has. There's so many layers to a heart, and I find that I almost wish that there was sort of a map of the heart in the book, so that I could follow the terms for various different parts, or like a diagram of the heart, so that it would be easier for a newbie to follow these medical terms. I also feel like he tends to sometimes jump around quite a lot, both in the timeline and around the world. So each chapter is about one type of heart surgery, but I think I would have liked a little bit more structure within each chapter, so that it either had more of a clear timeline, or that it had more clear some kind of order within the chapter, because it is slightly hard for me, at least, to follow, finding it quite hard to digest, but it is very interesting. So while it is taking me quite a long time, and while it is requiring a lot of attention when I am reading it, just because there's so much new information in this, it is also really useful information, I find, and I think this is one of those books that I will be really happy that I've read. It's very interesting and valuable, but it is not the most entertaining or enjoyable reading experience, which is why I'm reading a lot of other books on the side, because it is so dense and I'm not always in the mood for that. So yeah, so those are the two big books that I'm currently reading. A book that I just picked up, I think yesterday, is Murder Most Unladylike by Robin Stevens, which is a middle grade mystery series. And this is the first book in the series, which I have been hearing about from Mel over at Mel's Bookland Adventures, among others. I've seen a few other booktubers talk about the series, and a lot of people seem to really enjoy this series. Hazel and Daisy are two girls in sort of a boarding school in the 30s, I think, and they have created this secret detective society where they have basically solved little mysteries in the school, but then in the beginning of the book there's a murder happening, or there's been a murder, and they start investigating an actual like crime. So it is just about these two girls in a boarding school environment. Their relationship and the atmosphere is really Holmesian, and they kind of mention a lot of the golden era detective books. I've read about 100 pages of this already, and it's so super quick to read. It is super enjoyable. It is interesting the way that Hazel has been written. She's a Chinese girl who has moved to England, and she talks, she is the narrator of the book, and she talks about her experience as a Chinese immigrant to England in the 30s, and I thought that was a really interesting addition to this middle grade mystery, the fact that she does talk about her sort of the discrimination against her, problems that she's faced from other people, and they're judging her because of her difference. So it has been really enjoyable so far, and I think I will probably finish this during the weekend. Lastly, we have a book that I've actually just bought, although I have read it before, so I'm rereading it now, and it is For Esme with Love and Squalor by J.D. Salinger. The alternative title for this is 9 Stories, which is apparently the American title for it. So I read this short story collection quite a few years ago, and I loved it then. I borrowed it from the library when I first read it, and I've been sort of itching to reread this collection because something I read quite recently, Madeleine Bordeaux's book Marie, made me think of these short stories, the way Salinger captures fleeting moments and real conversations with people. The way a conversation works and dialogue works is that often you are constantly interrupting another person's line. So usually when you're having a conversation, you're not sitting waiting for that person to completely finish their sentence. And I think the flow of a conversation is so well captured in Salinger's writing, and small moments of nothing in particular, but there's just something he captures in his writing. So I just really love this short story collection, and I was itching to reread it, so I bought it, and I love this beautiful gold foil edition. So yes, I am really looking forward to making my way through this. I just read A Perfect Day for Banana Fish yesterday, and it struck me all over again. So I think this will be a really enjoyable rereading experience over the weekend. So those are the books that I'm currently reading and will be reading over the weekend and part of next week. Next up we have my library books. So the first 2 books are related to something I read recently, which is Fahrenheit 451. I really enjoyed Ray Bradbury's writing style in it. I thought it was really interesting, and I really wanted to read more of his work. So I picked up The Golden Apples of the Sun and Other Stories, which is a short story collection. And the reason I picked this particular book up by Bradbury is that it includes The Pedestrian, I think is the title, which is part of the sort of the original inspiration for his writing Fahrenheit 451, and I just really wanted to read the original story and also sort of experience some of his short stories, get a good sense of him as a writer outside of his obviously most well-known work Fahrenheit 451. So I'm looking forward to reading this and seeing, especially reading The Pedestrian, but hopefully reading some of his other short stories in this collection as well, and seeing how he deals with other themes, and how his writing changes in this short format. So yeah, so that is the fiction. And I also picked up The Last Interview, which is obviously an interview with Ray Bradbury, because I really enjoyed in the edition of Fahrenheit 451 that I have. It included a few of his articles at the end, and I thought he had a lot of interesting things to say about his writing and his life as an author. It sort of included some of his thoughts about the world and literature and things like that. So I found him really interesting in his nonfiction writing. So I thought that picking this up I would get more of a sense of him as a person, to sort of add to the reading of his fiction. So yeah, so this is part of a series of books, and I have been really interested in them for a while, so I'm looking forward to reading this alongside this one. Then we have two books that I'm super excited about that are both new releases, and are both books I've actually mentioned in anticipated releases videos that I've done. One that is from last year is Maestros and Their Music, The Art and Alchemy of Conducting by John Mauceri. And the title is pretty much what it is. It is about conducting. I mentioned this last year because I thought it sounded fun, it sounded really interesting, and a topic that I just felt like I hadn't seen ever dealt with in nonfiction. And I read two books, I think, about music last year, nonfiction books about music, and I really enjoyed reading about music. I think I've sort of assumed that reading about music would be difficult to really enjoy, since music is so based on listening. I just feel like it isn't necessarily the most appropriate medium for talking about music, but I did really enjoy both books I read last year, Gone by Min Kum and Grand Obsession by Perry Nizey. So I really enjoyed both of those, and when I saw this book on the releases for the autumn, I was immediately intrigued. This is still only sold in hardcover, so I thought I would get it from the library, and if I enjoyed it I will get the paperback eventually. But yeah, it is such a gorgeous book as well, and it is a book about conducting, and I'm really intrigued by this. Lastly, we have the book that I have mentioned in my anticipated release for the spring, and it is Beer, Myth, Animal and Icon by Wolf D. Storl. I think it is more a cultural history than a natural history, but I do think it sounds really interesting because there's so many beers in like in pop culture, in literature, in all forms of media. There's sort of a disconnect between the roughness of the beer in nature versus the beer in television, like Winnie the Pooh, or just in general teddy bears. There's such a complete contrast between these two images, so I think hopefully this book sort of deals with that, and the way that we have sort of created this really cozy character of not necessarily that cozy animal, but there's probably also a lot of misconceptions about the actual animal, and yeah, so I'm really looking forward to this because I haven't read any books about beers. So those are my library books and what I'm currently reading and will be reading for the next coming days. If you've read any of these, I would love to hear your thoughts about them, or if you have any recommendations for me, I'm always open for those. I hope you're having a really good Friday and weekend, and I will see you soon. Bye.